that evening, when all this stuff broke,
Yeah.
I was in a hotel room alone, and I got a text from my campaign consultant. He was my consultant at this time. And he sent me some things, and I read them, and I looked at them, and I thought, man, you know, I don't know whether to say I'm not really sure how I felt at that moment. I can't describe it. First off, I was very fearful.
Yeah.
I was very afraid. And I do remember crying for a moment and quickly catching myself crying. And the reason I started to cry was because for a moment I went back to being a child again. I went back to being a little kid who was afraid of everything. When I grew up, I was a little kid, I was afraid of everything. I mean, I was afraid of dogs, I was afraid of cats, I was afraid of strange looking people, I was scared of loud people, I was scared of quiet people, I was scared of the dark, I was scared of everything. I was just very fearful of everything. And for a moment, that day, that evening, when I was in that hotel room, I was back to being that little kid again. And just for a moment, and I started to cry, and I had to catch myself. And then I got angry, and I said, no, you can't get angry, because if you get angry, you're gonna do something stupid. And I said, man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What is my wife gonna think? What are my friends gonna think? And then the heat shields kicked in. And something told me, it said, you knew this was coming. I told my pastor it was coming. Didn't know how it was coming. Had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea how it was coming. I sat down when I decided to run for governor, and I told my pastor, I said, I'm about to run for governor. He said, that's great. I said, well, it's great on the one hand. I said, but I don't think they mind me being lieutenant governor, because lieutenant governor has limited power. I said, but the governor of the state has inordinate power, especially in North Carolina. I said, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know when they're going to do it. I said, but I'm afraid they're going to try to destroy me. And I said, they may succeed. And he said, well, you still going to do it? I said, yeah, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it. I said, and even sitting there with him, talking to him, I knew because of who I was and how I was raised and how I came up, I knew that somebody could figure out how to demonize me. I knew it. All of the trash that I had talked on social media back when I was a influencer, many of the more inflammatory speeches that I had given, even down to things like jokes I had told to people that I knew, the kind of person that I was. I knew there would be enough meat on the bone for somebody to do something to make people despise me. And so I was ready for it on the one hand, but like I said, everybody's ready for a fight until you get punched in the face. But that night was very rough for me. It was very rough, probably the roughest night that I've ever spent. And I'm glad that I was alone. I needed to be alone at that moment. I didn't need anybody around me asking me any questions. I didn't need anybody around me giving me any advice. I didn't even need anybody to console me. I just needed to reflect and think and pray and think about how I was going to handle this. That's what I needed at that moment. And thank God that's what I had. He put me in just the right place, in the right position to be able to be alone and not have anybody else in my ear. Even my campaign consultant, he sent me that message. He never even called me.
Just left you. Yeah.
He just left me in that hotel room by myself. And so, again, that night it was rough. It was very rough.